In God we trust. Everyone else must bring their data. Set the presenter to a room full of administrators. And my instinct told me that the statement was wrong. But a second later, I noticed that everyone was nodding in agreement. And so did I. The year was 2007. It was at the heart of the No Child Left Behind era. And it was my first year as a principal. And on the second week of school, our local newspaper published an article titled, "Scores Equals Success." And in this article, it referenced many of the success stories from schools across the valley. But it also included a list under the label, "Bottom of the Barrel." And my school, Jefferson Elementary, was at the bottom of the barrel, lowest performing elementary school in the county. During this week, I received several calls from angry parents. You see, in this year, our district had opened up a brand new school, and 20% of our students that resided within our school boundaries were now part of the new school. And parents that still resided within our boundaries called and demanded angrily that I help them have their child be moved to the new school, because as they stated, this was the worst school. I cut out that newspaper clipping of Bottom of the Barrel, taped it to my desk. It served as a sense of motivation. I was motivated by the opportunity to turn around a lower-performing school. I was motivated by the stark criticism of the community at large. And I was committed to research and to following best practices, and this included being data-driven. The state accountability system at the time had identified us as a program improvement school. And to be able to exit program improvement, you needed to meet your state and federal targets for 2 consecutive years. This is something that our community wanted. We wanted it badly because it would be a symbol of success. And after 1 year, we achieved minimum growth. But by our second year, we had met both our targets. We got a little taste of success. We got excited. We felt confident. We were more driven now to use data to drive our instruction. We felt it in the air that this was going to be our year. But about 30 days before the state testing window opened, we left for spring break. And on that Sunday, that Easter Sunday, April 4, 2010, our community was hit with a 7.2 earthquake. The earthquake shook our campus so hard that the cement soffits fell and shaved the doorknob. We suffered the most damage of any school in the county. Luckily, nobody was there. One quick tour of the campus and you knew that that week from spring break that we'd be off wasn't going to be enough for us to be able to resume school. We'd be away from our campus for an unknown period of time. And after 2 weeks, several of our teachers worried about the impact that this would have on our test scores and our ability to exit program improvement, our ability to feel success, began to reach out to students and met with them in our public library, providing several academic sessions, trying to keep the rhythm going, trying to continue to prepare them. We returned back on May 12th, missing 23 days of school and missing our state testing window. Our kinder through first grade students were distributed among 3 of the local schools, neighboring schools, and our students in grades 2nd through 6th returned to the original campus using the modular buildings around the perimeter of the main campus with a wooden wall separating them, and our cafeteria outside. We took and administered the state test on the last 3 days of school, and we left wondering what impact this would have on our scores. When we returned from summer, we learned that our scores would be considered invalid, that they would never score them, that we would never know the results, and that although they wouldn't count for us, they certainly counted against us. As we were reverted back to phase 1 of program improvement, this was disappointing and disheartening for our school community because we felt that success was within reach and we were robbed of this opportunity to feel success. But we couldn't dwell on this for too long because we knew that the rebuilding process would start soon and we needed to come together. We were rattled, but we would be more focused than ever in providing a great educational learning experiences for our students. And this was the beginning of a transformational period for me as a leader and as an educator. Over the next 2 years, where we serve students changed by year. And in that second year, our second through the sixth grade students were bused across town to an old, abandoned, and deteriorating former school campus, one that had no library because we had no room for a library, one where we couldn't provide tutoring because we needed to bus students across town immediately after school, one that lacked proper phone lines and internet service around some areas of the campus. But this didn't matter because we looked for new opportunities. We started to invest in technology. We started asking ourselves, how can we provide voice and choice for our students? How can we rethink what we're doing with instruction? And we began a student ambassador group. Our student ambassador group were very eager to provide tours of all our visitors in the media that wanted to know how our students were adapting to our current conditions. They were eager to show what we were doing academically and what we were doing with technology as well. And they had a news broadcast where they would inform our students about the current progress of the rebuilding and remodernization process of our school, and also about current student events and activities. Our school demonstrated a tremendous amount of perseverance, of unity, of culture. It was beginning to amplify student voice and provide an authentic audience, all things that were not measured. But it didn't matter. I didn't care. I no longer cared about test scores. And I only cared about our students and about our community. We had a successful reopening of our school campus, and I stayed on for 2 more years serving as their principal. For the last 5 years, I've been at the district office. And at the district office, I've had opportunity to have access to some of the leading minds in education and a tremendous amount of opportunity to reflect and rethink about my time at Jefferson. And many things have been revealed to me. You see, now I know that while the physical building was being rebuilt and remodernized, it wasn't the only thing that was being rebuilt. My leadership as an educator and as a leader was being built. The leadership capacity of our staff and our community was being built. We were resilient. It built character. It built pride. We no longer were the school that nobody wanted to be at. Our staff, parents, and students were proud to be Jefferson Tigers. So I've learned many lessons since then. I've learned that the data-driven mentality that I had led me to narrow the curriculum for our students. I've learned that the instruction that we're providing was very scripted, very explicit, but also very irrelevant to our students. I learned that our assessment practices were designed for short-term learning as opposed to deep and powerful learning experiences. And I now question the success that I thought we had the year that we exited program improvement. I began to rethink my definition of success. As a leader, my focus on being data-driven was well-intended. But the realities were that our instructional schedule was predominantly about English language arts and math, and very little about science, social studies, the arts, STEM, project-based learning. It was also very focused on our rising stars, that group of students that was right below the bar, that we gave very targeted instruction and intervention to help them move above the bar so it can help us achieve our scores, but at the cost and the neglect of not providing the same equal attention to our students that needed us the most, our students that were below basic and far below basic. As a leader, I played the game. I played the game that was made for adults to satisfy adults, but at the cost and expense of our students, one that would cause them to be more and more disenchanted and disengaged with schools. I now know that scores does not equal success. I now know that in God we trust everyone must bring their data only leads to a culture of distrust. Moving forward, I know that in many educational communities, it's still very strong to the will to be being driven by data. But moving forward, I want to be an advocate for students and staff. I want to be an advocate that we come together as a community and articulate what are our hopes and dreams for our students, to assess our objectives and everything that we do, to ask ourselves, what is our primary objective? What inspires us and what inspires our students to get up every morning to come to school? I want to engage as many people I can in conversations. I want to foster curiosity, ask, what would happen if? What if we did this? What if we did that? I want to work collaboratively. I want to ask, is the data guiding us or leading us astray? The picture here is the one where our students were engaged filming their solar racing cars as they were racing them. And it was days like these, like when they built their solar ovens and got to bring their own food of choice from home and cook it. It was days like these, like when they focused on project-based learning and were working toward converting their school into their dream school. It was the days that they were working with multimedia, that they were the most engaged, and that they were learning the most. My data was seeing their eyes lit with excitement and to see how engaged they were. I want to end with a quote from Michael Rosen, who says, first they said they needed data about the children to find out what they're learning. Then they said they needed data about the children to make sure that they're learning. Then the children only learn what could be turned into data. Then the children became data. Thank you very much.